Today's unexpected developments on the Brett Kavanaugh nomination were playing out in real time across the internet, on cable news, and we were hearing rumors something big was happening. People didn't understand. It began behind closed doors, and then we learned more than we were even supposed to with this hot mic moment between Senators Feinstein and Grassley.
Well, Jeff could force it if he wants to, but there was no agreement to do that.
Force what? Agreement to do what? And Lord knows the Senate can be confusing. When the hearing finally resumed, we saw senators struggling themselves on live TV to process what was happening. That kind of drama, well, honestly, it makes me think of something Lawrence O'Donnell would write for The West Wing. He's a Senate expert himself, and I'm happy to say he's going to join me in a moment, Lawrence, to take a look and watch how this happened.
As a point of personal privilege, I'm going to call on Senator Flake to speak.
Let the FBI continue to do an investigation limited in time and scope to the current allegations that are there.
Clerk will call the roll.
This is on the nominee.
Yeah.
On the nominee, no.
It doesn't matter what we say here. This will be up to Senator Schumer and Senator McConnell.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make sure, because this is somewhat unprecedented.
This country's being ripped apart here, and we've got to make sure that we do due diligence.
Because of the 2-hour rule, we're adjourned.
Lawrence O'Donnell, as you see, is here, host of The Last Word, and a longtime Senate expert. And also at the table, the New York Times' Mara Gay, who I'm pleased to announce tonight is an MSNBC contributor. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Excited.
Thanks for being here. We'll get to you, and you're also here later in the show, so that's a plug for later. Lawrence, when you look at that drama, it seemed to be the kind that senators struggled to understand. What were you thinking?
Well, when Pat Leahy, who's been in the Senate for decades, says it's unprecedented, it's unprecedented.
Yeah.
I was watching it at home live and live tweeting it. As soon as we got to 9:31, I knew there was a very serious problem, because this was a scheduled vote in that committee by Chuck Grassley at 9:30. They were all physically present. Some of the senators are out there on the panel, and the rest were in the conference room, very large conference room that's right behind the chairman's seat. And so when 9:31 came and we'd gone a minute past Grassley's deadline, there was very clearly a serious problem going on there, because when they're all physically there, you can just call for the vote immediately. And the other thing that was quite striking about it is the room had been silent for about 40 minutes before that. Grassley was rushing speakers at a certain point. He was pushing Cory Booker to finish, because I want to let everyone speak before the 9:30 deadline. And then the room went silent, and no one is saying anything. And you could watch the grim faces of Lindsey Graham and Orrin Hatch and Chuck Grassley sitting there helpless, doing absolutely nothing. And what that means is there's something going on in the conference room, and the people you see out here cannot help. In other words, whatever that problem is, that problem will not listen to Chuck Grassley, will not listen to Orrin Hatch, and will not listen to Lindsey Graham. And it turns out it's Chris Coons, longtime friend of Jeff Flake, who's back there negotiating the formula that we are now going to move under for the next week. Yeah, and people like me, and sometimes even people like you, are accused of dramatizing what's going on down there. Oh, boy, this was... But this is the future of the Supreme Court, an open national debate over how to adjudicate these claims of misconduct. And it all comes down to, as you just put it, those two people who aren't on the stage. And then I'm going to play this. We played this earlier tonight, and I want people to see it again with your analysis. The hot mic, which we don't usually get, as Feinstein's literally saying to Grassley, well, agree to what? Right. Take a look. Right.
We had to get this all done by 2 o'clock.
Well, is it done? Is Flake's is it going to happen, or did you cut off a vote?
No, we didn't have a motion in front of us. This is all a gentleman and women's agreement.
But I would assume
Gentlemen and women's agreement.
I would assume.
But I'm committed to...
Just let him say what he's committed to.
What Dianne Feinstein was pushing for was that the committee actually formally vote on what would have been a resolution of some kind to support what Jeff Flake was saying. And Chuck Grassley, the FBI probe. Yeah, Chuck Grassley wanted to hit that gavel as fast as possible, and he used a rule that they never use. It's the so-called 2-hour rule, which means a committee cannot stay in business 2 hours after the Senate floor goes into session. Okay, now that rule is almost never enforced.
Right.
And when committees are doing it, they can get permission for an exception, but no one there was going to force him to do that. I've never seen a chairman enforce that rule on himself, which is what you just saw there. He wanted this to be over.
I mean, we have a 1 hour rule that hardball starts afterward.
Exactly.
You have a 1 hour rule that goes to Rachel, but this 2 hour rule, as you say, was also Chuck Grassley being smart about getting out of a situation where, and this would have been a shocker with what we saw yesterday, where it seemed that some of the leaders in both parties, at least on the committee, not McConnell, who we just saw, but Grassley, Flake, and the Democrats said, actually, we can all live with this for a moment together.
Well, as someone whose job it is to hold public officials responsible, I loved seeing this play out, frankly, today, because I think it gave the American people a chance to really understand the impact of their vote for individual members of Congress. You saw really the human element, who these people are that are making these decisions. They're human, they're flawed, and they can be held responsible. It's not just, random people we don't know in the back of a room. These are people who are elected representatives.
Could you speak to what we call process that sometimes sounds boring but can be super important, which is there may be people out there in the country who haven't decided what Brett Kavanaugh did. They're not sure. And that Jeff Flake took a position that exists on a spectrum between he did something terrible and he did nothing, right? There's a spectrum. Jeff Flake seemed to occupy this rare position in Washington of maybe we need to know more for real about what he did before we can do more.
Right. And, what was interesting is that, Senator Flake, before he made that decision, he was actually confronted earlier in the day by two women.
Which we showed some of that,
exactly.
yeah.
Maria Gallagher and I believe Anna Maria Aquila. I apologize if I didn't get that last name correct. But these women confronted him in an elevator on camera, and they said, we told you about our sexual assaults, and how are you still going to put a man who's accused of sexual assault on the Supreme Court? And I think that was such a human moment. And you could see Jeff Flake when he was actually talking later. He was sweating. I mean, this man was under a lot of pressure, and I think, there are varying views about whether he did the right thing or not. But I do think it was a small human moment of someone who it appeared was trying to do the right thing. We'll see how this goes from here.
Oh, I have no doubt Jeff Flake was trying to do the right thing, and I have reason to doubt that there's no other Republican senator who would have done that. They have senators-only elevators in those buildings,
yeah, sure.
so that senators can walk onto elevators and never be bothered by people like Maria Gallagher, who kept that door open and kept talking to him for the longest time. And remember, you saw her saying to him, look me in the eye when I'm talking to you. And what did Jeff Flake do? He looked her in the eye. Now, I don't know if there's another Republican senator who just would have pressed close on those senator-only elevator doors and just closed that door. He looked her in the eye. He took that in. And the reason that the United States Senate is so unique is the power of one. If you can get one United States senator, or one United States senator is moved for whatever reason to stand up, that senator can usually change what's happening that day. The power of one is extraordinary in the Senate. What we also saw was the power of that one citizen's voice at the elevator door, two of them in this case, actually. But they got through to a United States senator, proving the value of physically being there,
right.
Proving the value of every contact that every citizen's ever tried to make with a senator.
I think both of you are speaking to what may be some kind of silver lining here. The people have been so rightfully outraged and sad over the course of yesterday and many aspects of this. But the fact that a lot of things are dispiriting doesn't mean nothing works if, as you put it, one citizen, one elected official can actually move everything, and no one knows. Anyone predicting where it goes next is maybe aggrandizing, but doesn't really know. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.